We have so much to catch up about. Today I want to talk to you about the mystery knit-along that we're going to be doing this summer. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the yarns that I've been spinning and some of the things that I've been knitting, some of the things that are happening around us today. So let's catch up. Hey there, thank you so much for being here. My name is Felicia from SweetGeorgia, and this is Taking Back Friday. This is a moment in time where we stop, we pause, and remember how important it is to make time to make things. Now, I have been making a lot of things. They're all kind of been behind the scenes things. I want to tell you a little bit about my knitting project that I'm working on, a little bit about a spinning project, and I will let you know, just a heads up, that I did take apart the loom completely. My fanny weaving loom is all over my dining room and my kitchen right now in various states of being sanded and being stained. So I will give you guys an update about the loom a little bit later in a different video. But today I want to tell you about the thing that I have been making with the knitting machine up here in the attic. Now, as you guys know, a couple of months ago, I acquired a couple of knitting machines, and so that's what I've been playing with for the past couple of weeks. I have been making swatches, and I have to say, I have fallen in love with swatches where you hold more than one yarn together, making cloth that is actually on the firmer side. I feel a little bit like sometimes when we hand knit, we want the drape and we want softness to the fabric, and so then we use larger knitting needle sizes, and then I feel like it takes away a little bit from the integrity of the cloth in some ways. And so working with the knitting machine and being able to achieve a tighter, finer gauge, but with finer yarns, gives you the firmness that you want and the integrity that you want in the cloth, but it still has drape and smoothness. So it's just a whole a world of knitted fabric that I'm really discovering and enjoying, just playing with the feel, the hand of these kinds of fabrics. So now for one of the very first knitted sweater projects that I've made on this knitting machine, I decided to do the Summer in Provence tee, which is one that I showed a couple of weeks ago, and it's basically two pieces, a front piece and a back piece, and they're seamed together on the top shoulders and on the sides. They were originally in the pattern knit flat. For the most part, the shaping is pretty much straight up and down. There's just a few increases and a few decreases. So I thought I can definitely do this. You can see kind of the schematic here. It's basically straight up and down. So I showed you guys a couple of weeks ago that I'd made this gauge swatch where I had used a bunch of different stitch style lengths to create different size gauge basically for the fabric. So using a larger stitch size, I could produce a larger stitch, which would produce a larger gauge. And so I just had to dial and figure out where I needed the yarn to be, where I needed the machine to be set up in order to produce the gauge that I needed for the sweater. So once I figured all of that out, I then went through the entire instructions and circled up all of the parts where I was going to be making the size that I'm going to be making. But on top of that, what I did was, because there's things like, you know, every 18th row, do an increase, every 10th row do a decrease or something like that. So I would actually calculate out what the row number was going to be for those points where I was going to have to do an increase and things like that. So after having written all of that out, I was able to basically crank out a front piece and a back piece for the sweater in very, very short time. It took maybe about 20 minutes, maybe half an hour to crank out one piece. Like so. I actually cranked only until I got to the top before the lace began. Now this lace pattern is quite a classic lace pattern. I believe I actually should have the punch card in order to knit this lace on the machine, but since I haven't really taken the steps to dive in and learn how to use the lace carriage of the machine yet, I did take this off and then knit all of the lace by hand. You should be able to make this lace on a knitting machine. It should be quite standard. So you can see here, I have marked off where my armhole is going to be. So basically from this point on, until this point. This needs to be seamed to the back piece. So this is the front piece. I have to seam the two sides together on both sides. And then at the bottom here, I have this little blue. The blue is waste yarn. So I'm basically going to unravel the blue part, pick up all the live stitches, and then I believe the bottom of this sweater is garter. It's garter band, garter ridge. So I'm just going to do garter at the bottom. And I could probably, if I've sewed these two pieces together, maybe I could even do it circular. Maybe. So in any case, this is what I have been working on, but I am, as always, stalled on the seaming part. So this is one of the things that I think I have to come to terms with, and that is that when you machine knit these pieces for your garments, you're knitting a lot of flat pieces, and then you will need to seam them together. Now, I'm just lazy about seaming. Now, this was not at all timed to work out with this at all, but it's just so happens that this past week we launched the final module of Holly Yo's knitting class that she's created for the School of Sweet Georgia. So Holly, she's a local Vancouver knitwear designer who has created this fantastic, in-depth, super epic class. It's like an encyclopedia of knitting knowledge that you need to have. So Holly's class has been broken up into 3 modules. The first module is called Fundamentals, and so that covers things like the casting on, different ways of casting on. It looks at tension or gauge, getting gauge in order to make your garments. It looks at things like selvage stitches and being able to manage those really, really neatly, and then also different techniques for joining yarn as you're knitting. So if you need to join multiple skeins of yarn, then you need to know some of these techniques. Module 2 is about shaping. So how do you make increases? How do you make decreases? And then from there, she talks a lot about fully fashioned shaping, which is basically to use those increases and decreases in a way that becomes a design feature in the piece that you're working on. So to create almost like texture or something visual that you can look at that is doing the functional effect of decreasing or increasing, but looks really good. So module 3 looks at different ways of binding off your knitted fabric, and then it also looks at blocking. It also looks at different techniques, things like picking up stitches. Maybe you need to pick up stitches for a button band or a neck band. Also different ways of making pockets. So it's almost like an afterthought pocket if you've left a space where you could then pop a pocket into a piece of cloth. That's available as well. And then most importantly, there's a lot of discussion about seaming and different ways of seaming. And so I have been watching Holly's class on how to do the mattress stitch for stockinette. So taking 2 pieces of stockinette, putting them side by side, and then seaming them together so that it looks invisible. It's just an invisible seam. And so that's what I need to do. Sit down and do it for this. And then hopefully in one of the upcoming videos, I'll actually be able to wear this. So that's what I've been working on for the knitting side of things. I have actually been doing a ton of spinning as well. And so you guys know that I am on the verge of getting this sock machine from Earl Bacher. It's a speedster with my name on it, eventually coming to me eventually. And so what I have been doing is I have been spinning sock yarn. So this is 3-ply yarn. This is actually yarn that was made from the leftovers of some spinning that I did because I wanted to make a shawl. So I'd taken a braid and broken it in half, and then decided to spin half of it for the shawl, and then I left half of it behind. So there's 50 grams of one color, 50 grams of another color. So with these 2 leftover colors of fiber, one of them was I think Lighthouse and the other one was Farm to Table. And so with those 2 leftover colors, I basically took the extra fiber, divided it into 3 bits crosswise. I like broke the fiber completely, and then with each one of the thirds I attenuated it and just kept attenuating it until it got longer and longer and longer and longer and thinner and thinner and thinner. And then I took basically color A and color B, one of these attenuated strips, and then I held them together and then combo drafted the 2 as I was spinning. Then taking the 3 bobbins that I'd made using this technique, then 3-ply them together to make this yarn. So I actually love this yarn. I was very apprehensive about the colors mixing and blending together because some of it is like mustard yellow over teal, some of it was like bright yellow over purple, and I'm like, there's a lot of complementary color blending going on in here. I don't know if I like it. And as I was plying them together, at some points in time, they were like all 3 different corners of the color wheel being applied together. So there would be like a yellow, some form of tealy turquoisey blue, and some form of red being mixed together at the same time. And I just thought, this is going to be terrible. This is going to look awful. However, I'm very much looking forward to taking the yarn and then maybe cranking it on the sock machine. This is my dream, is really just to make a whole bunch of handspun yarn that I can then crank using the sock machine in order to make handspun socks. I'm so excited about this. Yeah, I'm interested to see what's going to happen with this particular yarn and how it's going to look. I wanted to attenuate the fiber and keep it really, really, really super long because I wanted to see long shifts in color, like long color changes, as opposed to stripping it vertically into like finger length sections and then spinning all of those sections sequentially, because splitting them up, the more you split them up, the more it breaks up your color and the more mixed and blended the overall thing could end up being. So in any case, that's yarn that I've made, and I'm gonna keep making more until my machine arrives. Finally, the last thing that I want to mention today is about the mystery knit-along that SweetGeorgia does every summer. Every year we do a mystery knit-along, and so this year we are doing one that is called Autumn Dahlias. So the whole idea being, you know, it's going to be the end of the summer. We're going to start August 2nd is the cast on day, and there's going to be a cast on party as well. So the whole idea behind a mystery knit-along is that Tabitha has designed a shawl pattern, and a beautiful full shawl pattern using 2 skeins of yarn and a sock blank, a gradient sock blank. And so these 3 colors together are sort of low contrast. They're very subtle, very mellow. The whole vibe is very mellow, very relaxed. And so she's combined these 3 different yarns together in a shawl that's knit from side to side. It's knit flat side to side, and she knows what the whole thing is going to look like. And then the instructions have been broken down into 5 chunks. So starting on August 2nd, you would get clue number 1 or chunk number 1 of the instructions. And so you make that for the first week. And then for the second week, you get chunk number 2, the next part of the instructions. And then you keep going until week 5. And so then you'll get all of the instructions and then be able to finish the shawl. The whole idea is that you don't know what the shawl is going to look like until you finish. I think it's going to be really lovely. It incorporates a lot of those gradient sock blanks that I showed a couple of weeks ago on the live stream, and there's just like smooth transitions, really mellow, very soft gradients, all of that kind of stuff coming together. I think it's going to make a really beautiful, wearable, just gorgeous shawl. So I'm very, very excited about all of this kicking off. So there will be a cast on party that happens. It'll be on Zoom, and it'll be August 2nd is when we're going to do that. So in order to get the pattern, you can go to Ravelry to get the pattern right now, and you'll get basically an instruction, sort of an info sheet. And then when the clue number 1 drops, then you will just get the update, and you just go into Ravelry and you update it, and then you'll get the new version of the pattern with the instructions for that week. You can also come to our website and get that off of the SweetGeorgiaYarns.com website, and so the pattern is there. And then we've also created kits, so we actually put together different combinations of color so that you don't have to sort of go trying to figure out how to combine the colors in order to make something that's going to look really nice together, because you don't know what the shawl is going to look like in the end. And so Tabitha has designed these color combinations with all of that in mind. So with our knit-alongs, what we do is we've created a forum space or discussion space inside the School of SweetGeorgia. So if you happen to be a member of the School of SweetGeorgia, you can participate in the discussion forum there. Otherwise, we'd be happy to see your photos on Instagram. If you want to share your progress about what you're working on with the MCAL, you can post those on Instagram. And also throughout the Mystery Knit-Along, Tabitha is going to be putting together a number of posts, kind of like sharing status updates of what everybody's working on, where everybody's at, showing progress and things like that. And so that is all going to go on the SweetGeorgia website. So if you are looking for a project to knit this summer, I highly encourage you to pick up the MCal kit. There's going to be 1 skein of Tough Love sock in there. There's going to be 1 skein of Cash Luxe Spark. So it's a sparkly yarn, a little bit of sparkle, plus it's cashmere. And then there's going to be the gradient sock blank. So many things, so many different different feel that you get to play with as you knit this shawl. So that is basically it for today. I wanted to tell you about the MCal, I wanted to tell you about my sock yarn that I'm spinning, and also the sweater that is eventually going to be seamed together. And yeah, I am really looking forward to this summer. I think that there's going to be a sock machine here, there's going to be a cleaned up loom here. It's going to be great. I think I'm just going to need to find time to make all these things. I've been reading this book called The 4% Fix, which is about waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning so that you can have 1 hour to yourself in order to do a lot of the things that you want to do. I'm not necessarily sure that that is me, but that is one strategy. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here today. I would love to hear from you. If you are interested in doing the Mystery Knit-Along, please post in the comments below and let me know what colorway is your favorite, which color set is your favorite. Also, if you are not yet a member of the School of SweetGeorgia, I highly encourage you to come and check us out there. And we have everything from all of these knitting classes to the spinning class. I am following Rachel's class on how to spin sock yarns. And so I've been watching that, been watching Holly's class on how to seam mattress stitch, just learning a ton from all of these wonderful people. And so I hope that I will see you there as well. Thank you guys so much for being here. I will see you in the next one. All right, bye for now.